Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the Inside Spurs Show. Happy Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you're having a good week. Hope everything is going well in life. In this video, we're going to be talking about Heung-Min and potentially leaving this summer and how it might be more likely than ever. We're going to be talking about Manor Solomon leaving in the same way, I guess you could say. We talk about the Jack Grealish links. There's quite a few things actually that I want to talk about in regards to this summer. This summer is going to obviously be a very interesting summer with, in reality, wholesale changes in higher ups, changes in playing staff and coaching staff. Obviously, yes, there is a lot that's happened with people leaving. So we'll talk about that as well. Morning, Jake, Sean, Spurs, Dragon, Kieran, Sven, Paul. How are we all? There you go. Poet and didn't know it. But yeah, let's start and jump in first and foremost with the Heung-Min news. And look, at some point, he is going to leave. Let's put it out there into the atmosphere, into the stratosphere. At some point, Heung-Min will leave. Now, when that will be, obviously, is an interesting situation to come across. But Alistair Gold saying that the chances of Heung-Min moving to Saudi Arabia are higher now than they were before when it was last approached in 2023. A move to the MLS is believed to be of some interest to Son. However, MLS sides are unlikely to have the funds to complete such a deal. Now, obviously, when the MLS have signed sort of the bigger names recently, like Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets, a lot of that really has come down to these guys being on a free. So, yes, maybe they are earning more in terms of wages, but like in terms of actually the signings, they're quite cheap. With obviously Son having a contract, Spurs are going to demand a fee. And I want to get a bit of an interactive chat around fees and things like that for you guys to jump in and tell me in a second. But I guess this is the kind of the interesting thing now with whittling down Son's time in, you could say, top flight football. I still think he's got a couple of years left in him. Maybe not in terms of the Son of, the Golden Boot season, or even people that say he was washed last season really just have an unrealistic expectation of footballers. If he's washed, then like I said, 99% of the league is washed, right? Even probably more than that, actually. I mean, over 20 goal contributions and across all competitions last year. That's not washed. I don't know what you think washed is, but that's not washed. Washed would be like 6 goals, 3 assists. That would be washed. He's not. Plus, he was dealing with a lot of injuries and niggles last year. He's obviously going to struggle a little bit. But obviously, there is a view that is the decline happening as we speak. Potentially. I think you could sit there and say there maybe is a decline as we speak. I think that's fair to say. Obviously, I think the Golden Boot season into the season that he had like the hernia issue or whatever it was, the big injury that sort of played through all year, he struggled a lot. But I mean, in Ange's first season, 27 goal contributions. Last season, over 20. I can't remember exactly how many it is. He's still an effective player. He's still, a player that can do a job. Now, I've always said, if you're going to expect Son to play 3 games a week, 90 minutes a week, he's not going to last long. He's going to get injured. He's going to then miss time and he's going to have issues. I've always said if you use him for the important games and you use him for sporadic here and there's when you need him, he will still do a job. Absolutely. 100% still be a really good player. It depends on how Spurs view that next season. Now, Thomas Frank's a bit of a fan of Son. We know that. But would there be higher up involvement to say, hey, we've got a good offer for Son at the moment on the table. It might be something that we do. So knowing that, knowing those views and things like that, how much would I sit there and say is a fair, reasonable amount of money to expect a Heung-Min Son? Now, obviously, someone who gets the same sort of goal contributions who's 25 is going to cost more, right? Because they've got the runway that Son doesn't. But if I was to say and let's do this interactively. Maybe I'll rattle off some fees and prices, and you can just hit me with a yes and no. And obviously, if you're watching this back and I'm not live, by all means, just say how much would you want for Son. Okay. So if I said first and foremost, straight off the bat, 20 million. If you are the selling person, you're Daniel Levy, would you sell Son for 20 million? Okay. So this is obviously if you're not watching this live, this is for the chat to say yes or no. All right. So don't panic. I'm not being weird or losing my marbles. That was a long time ago. They've already been lost. Paul says it's too early for Son to go to Saudi. Simo says, I'm happy to sunset Son. If the replacement is Tell, then I feel very meh over it. Veteran says higher. Simo says no. Graham says no. Jake says no. Janice, no. Okay, so everyone says no to 20. All right, fine. That was the first. That was the first one off the bat. Okay. Let's go up a little bit more. 30. Would you sell Son for 30 million? Okay. Apple no the flower. Very solid. Graham, no. Sean says 30 for me. No 30. No. Yes. No. No. Okay. Summer fruit squash. No, it's apple and elderflower today. Apple and elderflower. Trying to lose weight. So things like this are an absolute game changer. Okay. All right. So that's 30. Let's jump up another 10. 40. And obviously, some of you already said yes, by the way. Some have already said this. So I totally get that you're like, well, yeah, obviously. But for the people that haven't said yes, would 40 be, would it be that you go, right, okay, that's probably where I would be for 40. Again, still quite a few no's. I think, that Gibbo says no for Saudi. Look, Saudi got the money. All right. Saudi got the money. Saudi would probably give you, let's say an Italian player, okay? Same stats, same everything as Son, same age, everything. Year-long contract, plays for Spurs even, right? Son has fame. Son has attention, It's why Ronaldo gets crazy money a year. Same player, not Ronaldo status, is not getting a fraction of that. So I guess with Saudi, you could say to Saudi, well, you want Heung-Min Son. The guy's 20-plus goal contribution in the Premier League every single season. We still want good money for him, 40 with add-ons. Kevin says yes, minimum 50. Well, hang on, hang on. 40, that would be acceptable. Saudi pay 50 you're up. Saudi 50 plus. It won't be 40 million pure profit, don't forget, because obviously we bought Son. So you got to factor in that. Let's say it was 15 million. You get 40. It's 25. 25, yeah. I had to do maths there for a quick second. Still at gym brain, evidently. Okay, right. 50. For the people that haven't said yes, for the people still holding out, would 50 be where you'd go, yeah, that's when I would give in? Okay, so yes, no to 50. Adventurous still wants more. 50 would be tempting. Iconography says 50 would start tempting me. Okay, so for the people that haven't said yes, how much is your number then? You tell me now, because I've kind of gone through from 20 to 50, and a lot of you still haven't said yes. So what is your number? And again, if you're watching this back, I'm not live. Just fire it into the comments because I want to see what you think. Okay. Callum Roach is here. Deadly. Careful. Mind your P's and Q's. Callum Roach is here. Right, mate. You want the fee for Eze? Tell you what, England last night, terrible. Pack it up, lads. We're not winning the World Cup. That was awful. 2 games, 2 goals scored against Andorra and Senegal and conceded 3. Awful. Graham says don't want to sell. 65 says Hansi. No, Callum, we're talking about Son. Sorry. I'm going to come to Semenyo in a bit, but we're talking about Son. The value that you would accept for selling Son, because there is interest in Son. It is likelier that he's to leave this summer than it was previous. 30 would be realistic. Saudi, you would have to always... do you know what? How I would compare Saudi to selling someone else? Think of English tax. When you sign a player and he's English, whack on 15 million. For me, that's how I view Saudi. Oh, it's Saudi, whack on 15 million. 50 is the number, but only Saudi will pay. Ange go large. Yeah, give Ange the England job. We're not going to win it with Thomas Tuchel or Gareth Southgate. If I watch it with Ange, at least I'll enjoy some of the football. No, his value. That's the other thing as well. Callum says, Callum's spot on with this. Son's value is not going to go up. Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe if he had 2 years left on his contract, you could whack on a couple extra million, but it wouldn't be a lot. This is the last time his value is going to be where you think it is. Next season, even if we extend him another year, next season it would drop and drop and drop. So just be wary of that. All right. But there we go. Okay, that's on Sonny. Like I said, you know, I think we've got way more on this to come through. Kim-Min Jae's off to Saudi. That's going to be mental. What a fall from grace he has had. Yeah, also, by the way, update on Leroy Sané. Leroy Sané is moving to Galatasaray. As I said for quite a while, our name was only put into that conversation for Sané's camp to try and get a better deal from Bayern Munich. We were never truly in there. We might have been interested. We might have had a conversation. We were never going to offer the fee that he would have wanted because David Ornstein said that Galatasaray have agreed a deal to sign Leroy Sané as a free agent, a 3-year deal worth up to 15 million euros per year. It's not signed, but in place once Bayern Munich's terms have expired. He was wanted by Arsenal, Al Hilal, Fenerbahce, and obviously Bayern. But a 3-year deal at 29 years old, 15 million euros a year. I actually tweeted out, it shows that free signings aren't cheap. 45 million euros on wages. You'd expect signing on fees and agent fees to be a minimum of 20 to 30 million. Turns into a 65, 75 million euro deal for 3 years. That is bonkers money, by the way. Absolute bonkers money. Fair play to Sané and fair play to his camp for getting that kind of money, by the way, because that is... It's like heist of the century kind of money that he's got out of that sort of that deal. We were never linked to this, and this is why we always talk about deals, and people kind of go, "Oh, these deals won't happen. We won't sign X. We won't sign Y." It's not to say that we'll sign them. It's kind of to discuss them. Is there substance? Is there things that no. We quite often, talk it through, discuss it. Does it fit what we're trying to do with the manager? Does it fit wage structures and what we need? No, it never did with Sané. So us being linked, I was a bit like, why are we linked? That makes no sense. And when I talked about this is the offer that he's going to get from Galatasaray, I said, we're not going to go anywhere near that. Okay, maybe he'd accepted a little bit less to come to us because obviously it's the Premier League, but he wasn't going to accept like 250 grand less a week. It's stuff like that. I mean, his buying contract was around 300 grand. We wouldn't have gone anywhere near that. Even on free, would have said 200 grand max. He's not sacking that off when he's got Galatasaray that's going to pay him what? Double that per year, nearly treble that, 2.5 times that a year. Like, we were never going to do that. That's why it's key to bring these things in, talk about them, and normally just get rid of them because let's be honest, it ain't going to happen. No, I can't see us signing on 28. Saying that agents don't just earn a 10% fat fee and no extra monetary bonuses and enforced industry standard. Yeah, agent fees are crazy. It's like when we talk about, for example, who's someone that we've been linked to signing. Oh, James Maddison, we signed a couple of years ago, right? 40 million and 10 million back to us for Winks, right? Sounds great on the face things. There's agent fees, there's signing on fees. That 40 million was probably about 50 million, right? That's why I get a bit annoyed about when people go, "Oh, we spent 100 million because we spent 40 million and 40 million and 20 million." It's like we haven't spent 100 million. No, we definitely haven't. Even if each deal was 5 million on, agent fees and signing on fees, which they're normally more than that, that's 115 million. You have to factor those costs in. Buying in Dombele out of his contract last year, you had to factor those costs in. So that's why I always got to remember that. That's why we got to remember. Oh, Steve's here. Jesus, careful, everyone. Steve's here. How are you, Steve? You right? But there we go. On Leroy Sané. Bayern have a bit of a fire sale at the moment. Sane's going. Kim-Min Jae's going. Obviously, Dyer's gone. They want to still move off Goretzka. Kingsley Coman's linked to a deal where Bayern want Rafa Leao, which I think would be an awful move for Bayern. They shouldn't do that. They're having a bit of fire sale at Bayern. It's interesting. But anyway, moving on because we've still got more chances to talk about. Obviously, Grealish is still someone to talk about. And Solomon, which you'd have thought I'd have had it to hand. Bear with me. Yeah, it's so I think I talked about it not long ago with Solomon. But the Athletic, yes, here we go. Yeah, Athletic yesterday saying it's probable Manor Solomon will leave Tottenham permanently this summer. He had 22 goals and assists during his time last season out on loan at Leeds. Obviously, huge part as to why they were promoted. Absolutely huge part. Just having a quick look at how. Just having a look at how Leeds fans view Solomon. Some of them are saying no. Okay, a lot. All right, it's just a minority. A lot of them are saying yes, that's fine. Why the hell would they say no? He was like their best winger last season. I'm good, Steampunk. How are you? Well, I wouldn't sure. It wouldn't surprise me, Sean. Let's talk about let's talk about Grealish in a second. But on Solomon, again, let's do an interactive. Let's talk about. I was in the gym earlier, and I was like, I want to get it a bit more active every now and then when I want to talk to you guys. So let's talk Manor Solomon. We're going to sell him, right? By all reports, we're going to sell him. Okay. So you've got Marseille that have been linked to him. You've got Everton that have been linked to him. And by the way, Everton have had a massive clear out this summer. They've gotten rid of loads of big, wage earning players like Calvert-Lewin, Decore. Ashley Young was on like 80 grand a week, by the way. Like fair play, right? So they're moving off loads of players. They're going to have way more financial fair play room now, which fair play, they needed to do it, and they're doing smart business in that. It's now about adding in some younger names or some quality names, but on lesser deals, and continue their progression back into the mid tables and beyond, right? So, and Leeds, obviously Leeds United as well. So I've got Manor Solomon. I'm going to rattle off a few prices to get an idea of what your minimum is. Okay, so let's start with and just yes or no. And again, you're watching this. I'm not live. You just give me your fee where it is. All right. So Manor Solomon, let's start with 7.5 million. Would you sell Manor Solomon for 7.5 million? Let's get your views on it. Morning, Sonia. How are you? No. Oh, I'm just gonna wait for a yes. See if someone gives me a yes. Okay, there is a few yeses. Steve's just done it just for the sake of it, I reckon. No, there's no add-ons. I'm just giving flat prices. Everything that I've said is flat prices, not even loan with obligations, by the way. It's just boom. Dragon, it was Solomon 7.5 million. Again, I'm gonna add, I'm gonna go up and up and up, just getting an idea. Okay, right. So for the most part, it's no. Okay. Right, Solomon. Obviously, we can't do big chunks like Sonny. Solomon's a bit different. Solomon, 10 million. 10 million. What would we do? Would we do Solomon 10 million? Again, it's not about where we're selling him for Solomon because he's not going to go Saudi unless they're linked to him somehow, but I've not seen anything. It's just Premier League teams and a Ligue 1 side, which, by the way, I think Angel Gomez is due to be sorted to Marseille in the coming days. Again, another one of those that we linked to but didn't happen. Here we go. Right. So Graham says yes. We've got some yeses on 10 million. The rest say no. Morning, mate. Don't skip fitness. Absolutely, Tom. I didn't. You can see there's some sweaty hair here. I mean, it's free money, but I think we can get. All right, we're coming to more figures. Don't worry. Coming to more figures. Tabo says no. Simo says no. Keep them given to the end of January. Visit the issue then. We need money now, Timothy. And also, So the other thing as well, by the way, the reason why I say these names is we've got a bloated squad that we actually now need to cut back on again. And that isn't a Lang situation. A lot of that is down to Prachi as well. We still need to clear off of names because, again, we've got situations of homegrown problems, academy trained player problems as well. All right. As Sean Hurl will tell you, we definitely do. I know, Venturous, calm down. All right. I always go live because I've got stuff to do when I come in. I go live and then do it after. Right. So for the most part, still no. What about 12.5 million? So a little bit of an increase. I think we're starting to get to a place where I think more people would now say yes. But yeah, we definitely do need to clear out this summer. You know, that's why we're talking. And I think that's why we're going to talk players like Richie and Basuma in a bit. He is coming. Yes, Sean. No. Yeah, obviously, if you've said yes already to a lower price, by the way, I would obviously agree that you'd probably say yes to a higher amount. But for the people that have already said no, I'm trying to work out when their parameters and threshold have been met. No to Osimhen. We won't be getting Osimhen. Bakayoko, overrated, in my opinion. Super overrated. Performance and output were not good enough this year. A 36-year-old Ivan Perisic replaced him in the team. And Edison, I thought he was linked to Saudi. And I know you're not talking the keeper. I know you're talking the midfielder. I thought he's linked to Saudi. I don't know what's happened there. Okay. All right. So a lot of people still saying no. Right. For the people that have still said no, what is the figure that you would take then? Because I'm still getting a lot of no's. What is the figure that you would take that you think is realistic for Solomon as well? For me, I'm thinking 15 is where I'm about. I think that's about fair for everyone. There's Premier League side that can afford that. You know, Leeds are coming up and they've got supposedly about 100 million to spend. Everton clearing off wages, new stadium. They should have a bit more room to maneuver. Actually, that's a point. I just want to bring up the FFP table that I saw ages ago. Where is it? I sent it to my friends. Here we are. Where was Everton? So Everton were 5th bottom for next season, supposedly. But I do really think looking at that, they will I think they'll sort themselves out going forward. They just need to clear out. That's what Everton needed. They need a stadium, do some stadium events, and then they'll be flying, you know? So for the most part, 15. People saying 25 to 30. No, I don't think you're going to get that for I don't think you're getting that for Solomon. 20, 25, Tabo says. I think 15. I think 15 I think that's what people were sort of saying. There might be add-ons, there might be installments potentially, but I'm just thinking flat rate 15. Okay. Solomon there. Right. Let's talk about a couple other players leaving, but let's do it in just seconds. I want to talk Jack Grealish, okay? Because look, we are still being linked to Jack Grealish. Ben Jacobs obviously saying, hey, Spurs are definitely interested in Jack Grealish. I think it was TalkSport leached off that and said that we're interested in Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish, okay? Now, I think Jack Grealish is a player that should have bloody played for Spurs all those years ago. Suits Spurs, suits the attitude that Spurs have, suits a lot of things that we're all about, right? In terms of Jack Grealish. And it's annoying that we never signed him all those years ago, back in the day when he was still at Aston Villa as a young guy. And he's fallen on some hard times at City. There's been some injury issues. I think Pep has kind of pigeonholed him a little bit. But actually, when I've watched him play centrally, he still looked like the Jack Grealish that I've seen at Aston Villa. He'll beat players. He'll pick passes. His finishing looks decent. So I say this. Jack Grealish, obviously 29 years old. If I said to you, again, as Callum Roach is calling this a live auction, if I say to you, Jack Grealish, season-long loan, yes or no, where are we on this? Again, even if you want to say no and give me a reason, I totally understand it. Because I know he won't suit everyone. He will not suit everyone, and I totally get that. You'd love Damsgaard. You prefer Mbuemo. All right, okay. All right, let's try and get players that are similar to one another. Mbuemo's a little different to Jack Grealish. Obviously, the curiosity is into Thomas Frank's system. Could Grealish play in it? I think he could. I don't know if he'd have as much of effectiveness. I think he'd have been more effective than Ange, genuinely. Yes. Loan would be ideal, but not if it means Levy choking on going for Eze. Yes. Hell yes, Steve says. I want Eze. All right, fair enough. City coming 2/3. Look, City, I think, if we were to get City would have to pay about 60% of his wages, knowing us. Yeah, Shat would loan and City pay part of his wages. Grealish, no to Grealish. I'll go for Yildiz. I don't think we'll go Yildiz, just purely down to how much he'd cost. We do need squad depth. Tom is right. We do still need squad depth. Okay, fair enough on Grealish. Fair enough. Right, let's talk about some more players that might leave Spurs. Okay, and we obviously are talking permanence. Is he an upgrade on Werner? Yes, he is. And he's homegrown, so there's another thing there. Let's talk about then other players that may leave Spurs, okay? And obviously, let's do values with them as well and things like that. And I think some of these values will be harder to sort of decipher because we're not exactly sure where they're at. But let's go first. Let's work back to front. Yeah, we'll work back to front. Let's think about Ben Davies. Okay, now long-time servant of Spurs, been here a lot of years. A lot of people have sort of said, no, you got to keep Ben Davies. He's great in the dressing room. He helps players settle and things like that. And I get that. I've always had the attitude of surely now with the squad that's been sorted, the fact that obviously the chemistry's built, camaraderie's built, it's not something we have to do now. So is Ben Davies now no longer technically needed for that? And if so, is he going to benefit you in the long run as a playing member and impact fully? So if I say Ben Davies and we're selling, let's talk about figures. Because he's got 1 year left on his contract. So we obviously extended him. And obviously it's been linked to Wrexham. We know about that. I still think he could play in the Premier League, by the way. I think Junior Firpo may be leaving Leeds. I'm not saying he'd go to Leeds. I'm saying there might be other teams in the Premier League looking at Ben Davies. Everton could probably do with a few bodies. And I think Ben Davies probably wouldn't break their wage structure. But he wouldn't go to West Ham. Burnley, would Burnley take him? Sunderland's, maybe. Again, these teams coming up could do with some Premier League experience, and Ben is that. High team in the Championship. You know, Carl Walker-Peters leaving Southampton. Would Southampton go for Ben? You know, I'm just trying to speak aloud as to where we could be with this. But if I said Ben Davies and I go 2.5 mil, again, 1 year after his contract, old injury issues, you're not going to get 10 plus million for him. But if I said 2.5 million, would you take that? Let's have a look. And yeah, don't forget, bloated squads, players are going to need to leave. That's why we talk Solomon. And we're going to, don't wrong, he can't escape. He might have been in Spain all year, but he can't escape. I will be talking about Brian Hill. Yes. 5 mil. Yes. 2.5. You've got a deal. Yeah, I don't think. I don't think you're going to get 5 mil plus for him. I just think 2.5 makes a ton of sense. If you can get 2.5, I think you do it. And I think that's Spurs is thinking. You know. Yeah, if I have to, I'd like a little bit more. Well, I'd always like a little bit more. You know, you go to a restaurant and you order a cheeseburger and chips. You go, God, I kind of wish I had some more chips here. You know, you order a pizza and you kind of go, God, I kind of wish I got more. That could just be me. That could just be because I've got a mindset of a person that can just non-stop eat, which is a nightmare when it comes to losing weight. By the way, it's an absolute nightmare. It's why I'm having to drink things like this on repeat. And, well, I can't reach it, but I've got to drink Pepsi Maxes and things like that. You order extra chips and onion rings. Simo, you dirty man. But you're right. You're smart. You're a smart man for that. I'd need to fast. Can't do it, dude. Can't do it. People end up, perishing because I would be starving. I am, though, on the second channel, probably in a few months' time, once I start not worrying about how many six packs and all those things that I have, I'm going to do a food eating challenge or something like that, all on the second channel. Do like 10,000 calories of food in a day, sort of thing. You expect to keep Ben until Dragon is available? Worrying. Okay. Have you seen Van de Ven's sack and possibly exchange? I know we're looking forward, but it just comes out. Yeah. I try and. I don't know. I try not to, Dirty fry. Simmer, you're too practiced in the game, You're smart. You think this is enough. No, Simmer goes, no, it's not enough. You need this. And everyone goes, oh, that's too much food, Simmer. And Simmer goes, watch this. You're gonna be sad sitting there with not extra onion rings. I'm gonna be smarter than you. He's got it up here. Keto is your answer. Keto is not my answer. I've done it once, and it was the worst week of my life. A genuinely worst week of my life. We need Frank emojis. Yeah, I'll sort that. I'll sort some new emojis. Andy versus food. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. We'll definitely do some eating challenges and things like that on the second channel. I think I'm moving in the next few months. So once I'm moved and settled, we'll be able to do it. Andy, tell me about it, Andy. 90k, 98 down to 91, just over a month hard work. Has got injuries of pure diet work. Good on you, Gibbo, mate. Good on you. It's not easy losing weight. It's not easy. I went from 114 kilograms, not last year, the year before, where I was massive. I went from 114. I think I ended up becoming like 86, 87. Hell of a few months. Anyway, yeah, it's all about calorific deficit, Cheers, Callum, mate. Appreciate it. All right, there's that on old Ben Davies. All right, I want to talk about Yves Bissouma because again, Frank was talking about Yves Bissouma and he said about midfield of Yves Bissouma, Bentancur, and motorbike down the road. Kulusevski. And he said, God, what a midfield that is. And I was sitting there going, is this guy not going to sell Basuma? Or am I losing my marbles? Because that was only last season that he was talking about it. You know, we're not talking something that happened ages ago. It was last season. So let's talk Basuma. All right. Sounded like you're plumbing. It was a motorbike just going down the road. You know, where am I moving to? Can't tell you that. Can't tell you that. Well, I'll have people at the door knocking on the door going, give us some fruit. I'm like, oh, jeez. But I'm moving. It's not, you know, it's not half an hour down the road. It's about an hour and a half away. Summer fruit squash time. Talk Spurs. Jesus. Right. So Basuma valuations. If I said about Basuma, let's use moving up the podcast charts. Oh, I don't think I'm popular probably enough to do that. Don't think I'm popular enough to do that. I pretty much only talk to Oso Spurs and that's it. Oh, and Tottenham Logic with Alan. Everyone else I don't talk to. Right, so Basuma, 10 million. I'm going to be kind of using the Højbjerg deal around Basuma and that valuation because they're similar age, similar, yeah, obviously when you have done the contracts, things like that. Did I buy? No, I didn't buy, mate. But it's for a new job. Fenerbahce in for Biss. Keep Biss, he's a gas, literally. 15, 20, Kulusevski. I'm confident on Biss. Last month of the season, one of the best players in that month, just inconsistent. That's why it's like, try not to use the last month of the season. It's always like, you know. Bally said, I'm not seeing rumours of Spurs looking for sixes. We looked at Angel Gomez and we looked at Paulinho. Congratulations. Appreciate it, Adventurous, mate. So 10 million. 10 million. Not enough of people said yes or no. 10 million Basuma. Are we doing it? Yes or no? Alice says sell Biss, Kula. Who's Alice? I don't know who Alice is. No, hear me out. Would anyone sell Kula? He's a player who crashes halfway through a season. I'm not selling Kula, no. Angel Gomez ain't a 6. Okay. And Paulinho? No, yes, no. Okay, right. So still got some no's there. No, I don't want Højbjerg. Just the amount of times that people revision and like go back and talk about old players. Are we all forgetting that Højbjerg just would love to pass the ball inside the 18-yard box to an attacker? Are we just forgetting about that? Like, I witnessed it so many times in the last season under Ange, and I was like, this guy just cannot play out from the back well enough. No. I am all good. Okay, still not right. Basuma. So the deal for Højbjerg was 12.5 raising to 17.5, if I'm correctly. So 12. Let's do 12.5 flat rate. 12.5 Basuma. Are you selling? Yay or nay? She's a YouTuber, is she? I've never heard. I think someone has. Is it Alice Talks Football? Is that the one we're talking about? Because people have mentioned her before. No. Janice says yes. This is an 8, not a 6. That's her. She's good. I'll have to check her out sometime. I've never watched any of her videos, but people have said that she's one of the better ones. Okay, right. Basuma then. Basuma, flat rate, 15 million. Yes or no? She's very complimentary to Spurs. Oh, even I'm not that complimentary to Spurs. She's probably more a Spurs fan than me. She was at the parade. She was holding up the Europa League trophy. No, yes, no, yes. Okay. 15 is acceptable, but just barely. Interesting. Okay, for anyone that's holding out for more than that 15, what is the valuation that you would be looking for on Basuma? How much would you want, or what is your minimum expectation of a deal? 20 million, 20. 20 is about right. 25 to 30. Okay. So I think people are wanting more than what we sold Højbjerg for, which is interesting. You could flog him as a Europa League winner. This isn't like the NFL. The NFL does stuff like that. If they've won a Super Bowl, their price goes up, even if they're role players. So that's why when we used to win as much as we did, our players used to leave and get crazy contracts and then do nothing elsewhere. It's because they were role players. They weren't the main guys. He was still there. Well, not Bale, but Brady was still there. Belichick was still there. Gronk, Edelman. Those are the guys. It looked really good. European final should be for his price. I think people were saying 15, 20. I think you can get 15. How about this? Last one, yes or no, before I move on to Richie. How about this? If I said to people 12 and a half or 15, you tell me which one. 12 and a half, 15 with add-ons up to 20. Would you do that? So tell me which one is the minimum that you would accept. So is it 12 and a half with add-ons of 7.5 to 20? Or is it 15 with add-ons of 5 to 20? Which is the minimum one that you would accept? Strike with the irons hot. City is spending. City, I think, will win the title again this year. They are not messing around. The 8 Nori deal is a brilliant deal. Obviously, Cherky, I think, is going to be something that they don't really have. I think Cherky reminds me a little bit of Mahrez in what they might do with him. And Reinders is a player and a half. They're going to be a team next year. Proper. They're going to feel a lot more like the City of old. 15, assuming the add-ons aren't crazy difficult, then either is fine. 15, 12 and a half. Okay, so 15 is kind of where people want to be at. The reason why I say 12 and a half is because that's what Højbjerg's deal was like. That's the only comparison. Right, Brian Hill. This is going to be a fun one. Obviously, Brian, wonder kid, joining from Spain all those years ago. Hasn't worked out. I still think there's a bit of a player there, but it just hasn't worked out. And in Spain, he's a much better player. The physicality, the speed, all of that is just that little bit less. It suits. So obviously Spurs needing to raise cash for cash flow's sake to obviously then finance transfers, also to get him off the books as well. Let's talk about Brian Hill. Obviously had a solid season at Girona. Like if we look at Brian, let's have a look at his stats for the season. So transfer market value at 15 million euros. I would bloody love that. Oh my Christ. McDonald's adverts on transfer market. So 32 games played this season, 4 goals, 3 assists, so 7 goal contributions in 32, so 1 in every sort of 4. Okay, 5 million. 5 million. What do we think? 5 million on Brian Hill. Give him for free. Potentially sure. I like Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is a phenomenal player. Second season though, CJ Stroud took a bit of a step back. Let's see what Jayden does second season. Drake May though. I like a bit of Drake May. I'll tell you that. Stephon Diggs is exactly what he needs. There is a release clause of 15 or a buyout option, but it won't be picked up. By the way, I do think Girona will take him on permanently. By the way, this is what I'm saying. I don't like Hill's face. All right, leave his face alone, lad. No for 5, 8. I'm going to give you some more figures. Don't worry. A lot of people saying yes on 5. By the way, I think a lot of people just kind of going, get him off the books. Bit of cash flow money to do your transfers with. He wants to stay in Spain. Spain want him. Let's do it. Right. So then, 5 million, some said no. What about 7 million? So 7 million, would you take that as a minimum? $7 million, I feel like people are starting to get a bit more there, though. I think people are kind of thinking, yeah, 7 million is probably where I'd be. Silly haircut, Howard Wallowitz. Oh my God. Leave Brian alone. And leave Howard alone. He was an astronaut, wasn't he, in Big Bang? I think that's what he was. He was an astronaut. Tell you what, that's one thing I would not do. I'm not going to Spain. I'm not going to space. Screw that. Boots on the floor. Boots on the floor, I tell you. Food eating challenges, I'll do, but space I wouldn't. I'll eat my body weight in all sorts of food, but I wouldn't do space. But 7 million, I think people would do. If 7 million isn't what you would do for Brian Hill, what is the value that you would accept for Brian? Ringo Hill. Oh my God. Oh, it's Ringo Starr. Noosa, I think, is going to Napoli. I think he's leaving Leipzig to go to Napoli. He did Masters in Engineering. He did, I think. I'm taking your word for it. 10 at the minimum, 8, 8.5. I think I would take 7, 7.5 personally. On Brian. Hill, 5 million plus add-ons to make it 7 or 8. Yannick, I'd probably take that as well, to be honest. Sean says 9. I think so. I'd take 7, 7.5 on Brian Hill. By the way, I really do appreciate that you're all getting involved in these interactive auctions, as Callum Roach would tell me. And also appreciate all the likes and recent subscribes, by the way. Absolute legends. Chance market's a weird one. We're in for a really mad summer. The summer with obviously Thomas now being here and all the deals that we're going to need to do. So make sure you kick about because it's going to be a big old summer this summer. It's the irony that I decided to go and get a new job in the biggest summer Spurs I've had in a while. I rate it. Stupidly, I rate it by myself. 2.75 and a slightly higher energy cap. 7, 7.5 is good enough for me. Any chance of Labour? Oh, I don't think he's leaving Brighton, mate. Brighton want 100+ million on him. Think of what the money they got for Caicedo. They want something like that. We won't go near him. We won't go near that fee with a 20-foot pole. All right. 3 if we can keep the mustache. Or not the mustache. Of all things, not the mustache. My mustache, solid. Solid, right? His mustache, no. Right. Last one, I want to talk about Richie. Richarlison, Brazil's number 9. A player that I think, for the most part, we all quite love. I think we all have a bit of a soft spot for Richie and his attitude, his die for the cause mentality, you know, how much he sticks up for the club he plays for. Signed for big money, 50 million, raising up to 60 with add-ons. I'd assume the add-ons probably have been met or near enough have been met. But he does have interest. elsewhere. You know, we know about Everton having interest in him. You would expect Saudi again to continue their interest in him. There'll be other Premier League teams that would have an interest in Richarlison, right? So with Richie, the value is an interesting one because I think there's a few schools of thought that you maybe have to accept less due to his injury issues. With Richie, let me bring up stats and things like that. So he's 28. He turns 29 at the back end of next season. Okay, so he's a fairly young 28-year-old. 24 games, 5 goals, 2 assists this season. The irony is actually, if you take away the Europa League and the EFL Cup, 15 games played, 4 goals, 1 assist in 500 minutes, which is 1 in every 3, basically. So on Richarlison, 2 years left on his contract as well. Let's take that into account. If I said 15 million, would you take 15 million for Richarlison? Yeah, lovely human being. You know, Sean and Graham, I agree. This be controversial. He's not leaving. Well, Steve, it's you or him. One of you's got to go. Rec, mate, I'm good. How are you? What do you think about Thomas Frank as Ange's replacement? He's a good coach. Similar brand in a way to Ange, but with tweaks and changes to certain points of his systems. You know, obviously, I know he likes to play, you know, 3 or 4 different formations. That's because he's been at Brentford for so long. They've built it up over time. Don't expect him to start playing 3 or 4 different formations straight away with Spurs. He needs time to develop that. So everyone says no. Everyone says no. Okay. Right. 15 million was a no. What about 20 million? Would 20 million be suffice for you to sell Richie? Freudian slip, pints. I don't know when I said pints, to be honest. I don't know when I said it, but I do like pints. I like loads of pints. I like all the pints. I like Guinness. I really like Guinness, to be honest. Guinness and IPAs, things like that. I'm old. You're not going to see me drinking Stellas and things like that. I'm just old, you know. Still people saying no. Pigeon Dance adds 5 mil. Do you think we can get Edison or Stiller for the new midfielder? I think Stiller will go to Bayern. Could we get them? Yes. It won't be cheap. And that's why I don't think we will. New signing, Andy the fire sale, man. You know that. My hamstrings are crap, though. So as long as Thomas Frank doesn't mind me being injured all year, fine. Which position will Frank finish with our current squad? Don't worry about that right now, mate. Compare it to once the market's done. I thought you have a pint of milk. No, mate. I haven't. I can't remember last time I had milk. I haven't had cereal in months, so I don't have milk at all. Right. 25 million. Richie, yes or no? $25 million. Are you doing that deal for Richie? Yay or nay? All right. Some say yes. Some have said yes to 25. A lot have still said no, though. A lot have still said no. That's interesting. Right. One more value. 30 million. Yes or no? 30 million on Richie. Yes or no? Still quite a few no's, by the way. Some yeses, but still quite a few no's. Simo, mate, it's not about how many Brazilian international caps he has. It's about the fact that he is never fit. It's kind of an issue. You know? That's my thinking, at least, on it. He's a Euro champion. Technically, he can't be a Euro champion because he's Brazilian. Now, do you mean if you're European champion? Then yes, he is that as well. All right, then. So for the people that have still said no, what is the minimum amount of money that you would accept for Richarlison? Again, we have a situation of needing cash flow, clearing non-homegrown players out of the squad. Hence why I'm bringing a lot of these players to attention. 32.7. I forgot about that. Don't tell other people about the injuries. All right, I'll keep it to myself. There's no way teams know about his injuries. All right. 40 million, 100 million to Saudi. 40 million. I think, look, lads, as much as I'm sitting there going, oh, I'd absolutely love 40 million, I'm going to be real with you. You're not getting 40 million for him. You're just not. I don't know. I look so low on this screen. Need to fix my posture. You won't be getting 40 million for him. The guy is never fit. That's kind of the issue. I love Richie. I love his attitude. I love his, like I said, die for the cause nature. But if he's not fit, then what are we doing? So look, I'm taking 25 for him personally. I'm taking 25. I reinvest it into his replacement. And just having to say goodbye, really. I know it's tough for some, but So look, I think with some interesting things there. Ancelotti likes him, so we might pick him even if he plays in Saudi and we can get the big bucks. There you go. There you go. Callum Roach dropping some knowledge there. He didn't have injuries at Everton. Ange broke him. Mate, he was injured before Ange at Spurs. He had injury issues at Everton. He did have in his last season, he had a few little issues, but he was injured under Conte. But that might have been because he just hated Conte, to be fair. But he's had some injury issues before us. But look, yeah, shut up, Simo. Shut up, Simo. But look, so really fascinating things there. By the way, Alexis McAllister said that Romero. Did he say Romero is the best centre back in the world? Did I just read? For me, he's the best centre back in the world for several years. All right. Well, you do play with Virgil van Dijk, Alexis McAllister. I must have missed that point. Okay. I think Romero is unbelievable, by the way. It is quite funny that some Spurs fans go, no, he's not very good. And then the amount of pro footballers that have gone, he's the best centre back in the world. It's like, I think I'll probably agree with the footballers. I feel like they might know a bit more as to why he's so good. That's going to rattle someone. I can promise you that. I can promise you that. That will rattle someone. They'll go, he's rubbish. He's never fit. Shut up, you weirdo. Look, it's really good stuff in that. Thank you all so much for your interaction and the likes and the comments. Obviously, great for algorithm, but it's great for me to understand a bit more as to your thinking. It's great for me to, in a weird way, collab without obviously collabing properly, but to get an idea of how your minds work. I think Spurs are in for an interesting summer with, obviously, yeah, we all talk about players needing to come in, but let's be real, players need to leave just as much as players coming in. And that's what we talk about. Solomon, we talk about Basuma and Richie, Ben Davies, Son we talked about today, obviously. There is players in that squad that are going to be leaving in that first team squad I'm talking about. But in terms of the players coming in, obviously there's a lot of work to do there. Spurs are in for an absolutely mental summer this summer. It really is. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be glass half full. I had a bottle that had something in it, but glass half full. Spurs are in for a mental summer this summer because of all the stuff coming around. And obviously, yes, one Thomas Frank will have a big say in all of this as well. And I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys are very much looking forward to it. Join the Discord. It's there, by the way. It's there. How much do we raise? 25 Richie, 15 Bis, 7 Brian Hill. That's what? 47. Sonny, let's call it 40. 87. Ben, let's call it 3. Let's call it 90. Let's call it 90. Why not? Probably could get more on Sonny. Yeah, probably get more on Sonny, but you know what I mean. No, Romero's not being sold. I'll fight. I will fight Simeone. I don't care his Argentine. I will fight him to keep Romero at this club. Yeah, maybe Valise, but we'll see about that one. I think that'll be a conversation higher ups have this summer. But look, thank you so much for all joining me this morning into the afternoons. You absolute bloody legends. You absolute, all of you. Yeah, you bloody legends. Will I fight Romero? No, because he'd probably eat me alive. Thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon. Please go and enjoy the rest of your days, your mornings, your afternoons, your evenings, wherever you are in the world. And if anything breaks, we'll be live. But if not, I'll be back tomorrow to talk a lot more about Tottenham. Take care of yourselves. Look after yourselves. And I'll speak to you all very, very soon. Take care. Peace.